Here.
Blackwell,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Collins,
Present.
Dockery.
Present.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Blackwell, second by Campbell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Number 3, new business. Discussion on e-scooters. Chief or Jeff, can I call on one of you guys?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know we've been dealing with this most of this summer. Just to give you kind of an overview, we've received a growing number of public safety complaints reference reckless operation of the electric scooters within the city of Eldridge. These scooters range from anywhere from 200 watts to about 755 watts in power, and have increasingly been observed traveling at unsafe speeds, disregard traffic control devices, and operating in close proximity to pedestrians on the bike path. What we would recommend is discussion in looking at establishing a city ordinance reference e-scooters. Some safety issues that we've identified is obviously the reckless riding and excessive speed, conflicts with pedestrians and vehicles, basically them being in the roadway, and a lack of kind of any clear state law or local ordinance to kind of enforce anything of that nature. From May 1st to August 4th, the officers have given numerous verbal warnings and educated the juvenile riders on kind of operation of safety and traffic laws, things of that nature. We received 7 calls for service for reference unsafe scooter operation. Most of those were for speed or being in the roadway. So what we as a police department would recommend for a scope, we would like to see something established for scooters with motors anywhere between 200 watts and 750 watts. That Iowa code that I sent you is a good mirror of what you could do. That one is for 750 watts and up, and basically that is for your high-end scooters, kind of off-road scooters, is what that pretty much applies to. So we would recommend any ordinance having anywhere from 200 watts to 750 watts. We would like to see operation limited to sidewalks and or multi-use paths, so we can get them out of the street and avoid any vehicular and e-scooter crashes. Speed restrictions, that's something that the council can discuss. In here, just for an example, I put 15 miles per hour when on sidewalks or paths. You can also establish an age requirement. For example, I just put 14 years of age, but that's something that you guys could discuss, and if you want to do 10 years of age or anything of that nature. You can also require a kind of a safety helmet requirement for anyone under the age of 18. Now that's something obviously open for discussion. You don't have to do. We've hosted e-scooter safety class. We responded to numerous citizens' complaints, initiated many conversations about safe use of scooters with juveniles. But I think it's time that we probably need to establish some kind of city ordinance to help the police department enforce some of the actions out there. Now I know traffic violation stuff, running stop signs and things of that nature, we've already been talking to the juveniles about. We don't want to be writing 10-year-olds traffic citations. That's just not what we're about. We want to have good rapport, especially with our juvenile community. So that's where the guys have just been educating them on safety and rules of the road. So I just think with all the complaints we're having, the more scooters we're seeing, it's time to maybe have a discussion about a city ordinance reference.
I commend you for bringing this to our attention, Andrew, although I think we've all had this on our radar for a long time, because this is probably the #1 complaint I get from residents.
Yep.
The phone calls that I get are about scooters. And it's not so much about getting the kids in trouble, but people are worried about hitting them and having that on their conscience.
Absolutely.
And so I think this is a definite way to address that, and I commend you for that, and I think that we should have a good discussion on that.
Sure, absolutely.
Chief, when you talked about prohibiting them on streets, you're talking not what you put in the sample here, but all levels, power levels?
Yeah, anywhere from, so basically the scooters you're seeing that most of these kids are riding are anywhere from that 200 to 750 watts in power. So that's what I would say put into the ordinance if you guys were to go that route. Now I know there would probably be some pushback with somebody or some citizens saying, hey, there's not sidewalks on every street. And that's something to also consider too.
But I think initially getting something put in there, even if it's on the stronger side, we can use as another educational tool like you guys are doing. And then if we needed to come back, circle back and amend this to go to a lower level and be more strict on it, we always have that opportunity, because I don't want to take away all of their opportunities to be able to ride around and have fun with scooters, because it's better than sitting in the basement.
Exactly.
On the other hand, we don't want somebody to get hurt or killed. So if we had a base to start with, then we could always amend that down the road, and then hopefully the parents would be more cognitive to be educating in the house too, as well as you guys, what you're doing for education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, ever since we kind of started that PSA on Facebook with everything, our complaints have dropped. And I believe that's associated to hopefully parents having conversations with their kids about, hey, let's not just go out in the street, let's stop at the stop signs, let's obviously look both ways, let's yield to those vehicles and the pedestrians on the bike path. But I think our biggest problem is just getting them out of the street. I think we need something that says, hey, we're gonna restrict this use in the street for the time being.
Hey Chief, how many scooters do you think are in town?
Oh, I would say probably.
Just a guesstimate.
300 to 500.
Really?
I mean, we see them every day. I'd probably 300.
And then in your estimation, Chief, would you say that it's the same 10 or 20 kids that are causing the issues and everyone else is doing a pretty good job? Or how would you rate that?
I would say it's in general. I wouldn't say it's just one specific group or kids that we're dealing with all the time. I think it's just it's a general problem. And I think it's young juveniles who obviously haven't taken drivers, that don't know the rules of the road, and just are so caught up in this new technology that they're forgetting about the safety things.
And I'm glad you're kind of taking this up too. I like that you've done the, where you're showing them that, the police are just trying to educate you and not jam you up. And I think they can understand that, and I think the parents would understand that too. And I do agree with Mr. Yossi that we need to start with something and then we can adapt to it later, at a later date if we need to. But just something that we can then assist you so we can, make sure that the streets are safe for everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's not, and like you said, we're not out to write citations references. We want everyone to be safe, the motoring public, the juveniles on the scooters, and also the pedestrians on the bike path. So it's going to be, if there is an ordinance passed sometime in the future, it's going to be an educational thing. And just talk to them, hey, let's get out of the street. You guys are doing a great thing, but let's get out of the street and be safe. So that's all it will come down to.
We also need to take a look at limiting one person per scooter. You see multiple people riding, and that's usually when bad things happen. I still think we need to discuss putting stop signs on the bike paths. I mean, those kids going down the bike paths are just flying. There's nothing that says stop at this intersection. They're just blowing through them like cars and everybody else. You gotta wait for us.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm not opposed to this. We might want to also think about if we set a speed limit to include e-bikes to that also. Just to be consistent.
Yeah.
Because e-bikes can go up to 28, right, miles an hour?
I believe so. And some are even designed to go faster. It just kind of depends on, once again, the wattage and the power of the bike. But,
I've seen a couple e-bikes. Well, I don't know if they're even e-bikes. They look like little Honda 70s. That they
Almost
just
look like
fly up and down First Street on the path.
So can Jeff and Chief work on an ordinance and put some things together for us to look at as a starting point and move forward?
yeah, and I think maybe using some of that definition from the assisted mobile device, I think will help too with building that. So yeah, we can definitely do that.
That'd be a good start for me.
Yeah, we found some sample stuff from other Iowa towns that they've got in place right now.
We'll have to come up with something, because if there's no adverse thing for them not following this, what's gonna give you the leverage to try to get this in the proper place?
Yep.
And Andrew is exactly right. This is the tool. They can get them stopped and they can educate. And that's the key.
And that's what our plan is. So.
Hey Chief, I've had some adults ask about their e-bikes because of the attention this is getting and stuff. So as this is created or whatever, how do you see differentiating between e-bikes and scooters for adults that wanna ride from their house on the street to the bike path instead of riding on a sidewalk or whatever, that are going 15 or 20 mile an hour. Or one of the adults has a bad hip or a bad knee or what have you, and so the wife's riding a regular mountain bike and the husband's riding an e-bike, or vice versa, or whatever. How do you see this growing to accommodate them when they're adults that are following the
Yeah,
law?
and it would just be the definitions of them is gonna be really the big difference, just differentiating the e-bike with the e-scooter, so. It's same premise, you know, they still have to follow all traffic laws if the e-bikes are gonna be in the street, they gotta follow the traffic laws, just like a normal bicyclist in the street. So,
Sure.
not much there, just wording basically, so.
Well, we might be able to tie it to a valid driver's license,
You could,
because people that have a valid driver's license know the rules of the road.
Right.
So that might.
For e-bikes.
For e-bikes.
yeah, for
that
e-bikes,
might-
and that's why I kinda just use that 14 years of age, because that's when they're usually getting their permit, they're starting to learn the rules of the road and things of that nature, so.
Sure.
That's why I threw that as an example, so.
Sounds good.
Chief, just a question here for you. Bike paths, I can see them being utilized on the sidewalks. I can see some concerns with some of the narrow sidewalks. I know we just passed that ordinance now, 5 foot or 3 foot. If they're on the sidewalks, then who has a right of way on that? I'm assuming the pedestrians who are walking, and then those that have to yield to those pedestrians. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, they do have to yield to pedestrians, and honestly, a good safety practice would be say, hey, passing on your left to a pedestrian walking, but also slowing down to that pedestrian's level of speed. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's, education as well regarding passing left, passing right, and see,
Absolutely.
no matter where you're at, especially on the bike paths, just alert people. And I think that's a good message for adults as well. I don't know how many times I've been on the bike path, as just walking, not necessarily riding at the time, but individuals passing you, not saying pass left, pass right, or even on the bike. That's just common courtesy that people should just get into habit from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, just a good reminder for everybody.
Yeah, definitely so. So thank you for igniting this conversation with us, and it's been something that we have talked about and kicked around for a while, so it's nice that we got something really moving right now. And also too, regarding the sidewalks, I think this is great for us as a city that we can continue looking at areas where the sidewalks might be missing, such as Iowa Street too, with school starting here soon, and get these completed for the safety of students and residents in Riverview.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any more on e-scooters? All right, we'll move on to 3B. Discussion of adding a stop sign at the intersection of Second and Davenport. Chief or Jeff, can I call on you for that?
It's actually me.
All right, Scott.
But that's okay. This is a resident request that was brought to me a couple weeks ago about the stop sign at King of Roadway stop. I've talked to Chief about it and Jeff in Nevada as well. And it's not a speed issue, but it's a visibility issue. And those, I find myself in the intersection a lot as I'm going to Grand Haven or whatever, and you've really got to inch out into the street to look north. And this resident said she talked to numerous people, or she talked to several, and I talked to several, that would like us to address the four-way stop. And I think it's a no-brainer from my point of view. Chief, I think you said you were okay with it.
Yep.
And, so that's why I brought it up.
So this is Second Avenue,
Pardon me?
Second Avenue,
Second Street.
Second Street.
Downtown, right?
It's like Second Avenue.
Chambers.
Okay.
Well, if anybody's been uptown at lunchtime, the streets are full. I agree with Scott, you can't see, plus we got the big planters, depends on the height of your vehicle. Right there at the corner by your building, I would support putting them there for that intersection.
That one at Second Franklin, I think, helped out tremendously for moving traffic and people flying through that intersection.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Dockery and Councilman Campbell. The visibility there, especially on lunchtime, you have to really creep almost halfway out into that intersection to make sure it's clear before you go through. So, unless Zach, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but
Yeah, no, from an engineering standpoint, we'd be in favor of it as well. I went back and looked, it was looked at back in 2015 before Second Street was upgraded. And, yeah, there were site distance concerns then, and yes, I would agree they still remain true today. So, yeah, from an engineering standpoint, we would be in favor of that recommendation as well, of making a four-way stop at Second and Davenport.
Exactly, we need to update a traffic study for the DOT to have an updated verification for that in case somebody got too happy at a fresh accident wants to become a four-way stop.
Well, I think the study of 2015 is still relevant. Went back and looked at it. It really was looking at the site triangles at the intersections, and it still remains true today with all the the on-street parking. You still don't have that necessary site distance you would need. So I think that it's still relevant that it meets that requirement to meet that warrant to allow for stop signs.
I think we would just have to add it to the stop sign ordinance now, so.
So that's something we need to put on the agenda.
Yeah, so moving to the next agenda. All right. Move on to 3C, Dahman Drive, study by Shive. Chief or Zach, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think we both can talk about it. I'm going to be using a lot of stats from Zach, so sorry. I'm going to give him credit because he did a lot of the work here. So yeah, I've been working with a resident that lives on Dahman Drive, references complaints about speeding. We have definitely stepped up our enforcement, and I think we've seen a drop in that. However, it's still an issue. So I worked with Nevada and Zach on getting a traffic study done to see what we're actually looking at. And I'll cite some of the traffic studies here. Data was obtained through the deployment of speed cameras at 2 locations. One was on the north side of Dahman Drive by Davenport Court, and other at Dahman Drive in Donahue. Location 1, the north side of Dahman Drive in Davenport Court, and correct me if I'm wrong when I say any of this, 85% of the vehicle speed was about 27 miles per hour, with one vehicle registering 33 miles per hour. Now, when you get further down at Dahman Drive in Donahue, 85% of the vehicles were going about 31 miles per hour, and then one was recorded at a speed of 41 miles per hour. So the data shows that the vehicle speeds increased north of Davenport Court after coming around that curve heading northbound. They also evaluated a four-way stop for vehicle volume, pedestrian volume, school crossings, and crash experience. We don't have a lot of crashes there on that road. Pedestrian volume was not met, vehicle volume was not met to establish a four-way stop on that road to slow down the speeders. A couple recommendations from Shive and Zach, and I think this is the best one, is speed humps on Dahman Drive to slow down the speeding issues that we see. And I think for maximum effectiveness, it was spaced out every 400 feet, is that right? Mm-hmm. Which would require at least 3 speed humps on Dahman Drive. Another recommendation was our speed radar signs that you see kind of in school zones that flash at you and tell you how fast you're going. And obviously, we will continue our targeted speed enforcement of those locations. The last 2 weeks, we've kind of been hitting other areas due to other reasons, but we will still obviously target those locations. In conclusion, I think the data indicates that a significant portion of drivers are traveling at well above the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour that we see. So I think, and I don't know how Zach feels, I think he might feel the same way, that I think a good discussion probably needs to be had on possibly adding the speed humps to those locations. And I'll turn it over to Zach.
Yeah, I think that would probably be your best long-term solution. I mean, it didn't meet any of the warrants for four-way stops, so we don't really want to unnecessarily make it a stop control, because then people typically, stop paying attention to them when you start putting stop signs where they're not really needed or required. So that's kind of the long-term solution, would be possibly the speed humps. I think if that's the route, one interesting thing, I reached out to Davenport about this as well, because I know they've been putting up more in their residential areas, speed humps throughout town, and they actually have like a traffic calming policy to kind of like score different, when they get complaints from residents, to kind of have a threshold for it to meet, to really before they would get put, before the speed humps would get put out there, just to make sure that, you know, they're being fair across different areas and, you know, not necessarily just getting like a certain resident that's very vocal, truly making sure it kind of hits a threshold. So, one thing that, you know, to discuss and kind of keep in mind too in the future that might, you know, as more, complaints in some residential areas might come up, of trying to set some type of like baseline that to judge if we think it, if it's worthwhile to do these speed humps or not.
I believe we still have those temporary speed humps that we had on West Pinehurst before we put the permanent one in. That's something we could figure out the best place and put that there and see if it slows them down.
Yeah, I wasn't aware we still had those, so yeah.
We bought them, I don't think we,
Got rid of
hopefully we
them,
still have
hopefully.
them somewhere.
Keith, do we still have those anywhere?
Yes. There we go.
There we go. There's our answer.
You know, whether it's, you know, just on the north side of that curve, or if it's up between that and West Donahue somewhere.
And you can tell us about the best location for that.
Yeah, because it, I mean, from the speed data, as Chief mentioned, it did seem pretty clear that as people got north around the curve, the speeds increased, kind of as, you know, you have that straightaway stretch up the road. So, yeah, probably somewhere around Donahue, maybe, probably makes sense.
Somewhere there, but we do have those. The only thing is the Donahue Court there, just south of West Donahue.
Oh, yeah.
What's that first court right there?
Court?
That's the first one.
Then I think it goes down.
Yeah.
All the water from both directions drains down to there, and that's where the intakes are. So whatever we do, we have to make sure we have flow for the water and curb and gutter. But, the other thing is, I know school's starting in a couple weeks. That speed limit sign on Valley Drive, it was purchased with the intent of moving it if we need to. All we have to do is put a pole up on Diamond Drive and put that speed limit sign up there for a while too, or we take it down, move it, to see if the general public's aware of what's going on and this starts slowing down a little bit.
I think they've worked really well on South 8th. I know it's worked really well on there, and then Pinehurst, it's really helped there too. And you know, I'm wondering for the street workers, how does that work with snow removal?
The speed humps, I think, when they're, you know, part of the pavement, I don't think it's much of an issue. I guess the temporary ones, I'm not sure if they're just ones that you screw into the pavement.
As long as they're
So,
tapered good,
As long as they're tapered good?
Yeah.
like the ones on Pinehurst.
Yeah, but, you know, we've shown that it's worked in the past with our city, and I'm, you know, especially driving ambulance in Davenport, you're seeing them more and more down residential streets. You know, I call it the pass-through streets that we all know are kind of shortcuts to get, you know, from here to there, and they're putting them out a lot now. So I think it's working, and I think that'd be a great idea, and no more, you know, four-way stops if we can help it.
I do like that you have data to prove that there are concerns there regarding speeding, especially in a residential area where it's 25 with that. You're always looking at the safety of the residents, children, and so forth too. Most of these kids aren't watching, the ball rolls in the street or they're flying through there and they're able to stop fast enough. So with that being said, I'm sure Zach, you've seen different communities too, a lot of complaints by maybe one single person. At least we have data to back that up, and anything else as we move forward with, obviously, we do listen to the concerns of our citizens, but it's nice that we do have these cameras, that we can measure, that we have dates to this, to say, yes, this is a necessity for the safety, and we're not just spending taxpayers' money unnecessarily. So I'm glad that we have this. As we move forward with other complaints, I would strongly recommend that we utilize that system as well. The portable ones, the only thing we'd have to do, and they are just temporary, is put them in a place that Zach would recommend. You know, because ultimately that's what we did on Pinehurst. Then we took them out and took the concrete out and put them in that same location. Otherwise, when you remove them,
there's gonna be holes that we'd have to grill. But that would be the thing to see if that slows them down. I mean, we have it, and, Keith, do you remember the city staff put those out last time? So there wouldn't be a lot of expense to put them out to try.
How many do we have?
One set.
What's that?
And we could see if one could do it instead of two. Maybe it just needs one.
But if it's strategically placed where Zach thinks there's gonna be one permanent one, that's where you should put it.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, and that's a good point you mentioned is, I know you recommended 3, but we start with 1 at a time and then start looking at the results, and if we don't need 3, then we might save that for another location in town down the road that we feel we need it for.
So should we start the ball rolling, though, to get a permanent one at least? I mean, we're gonna end up there, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So we should start that process.
But we could put out the temporary one.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
Tomorrow.
I agree, but we should still try whatever process we have to do to get the permanent ones in.
Which Zach should have the design criteria for West Pinehurst, because that's a little different than South 8.
Yeah, if we wanted like a full concrete one that's, also could go asphalt. I think that's the kind that Davenport's been doing, are mostly like the asphalt ones, but.
If we're gonna do it, my vote is concrete, make it permanent.
And more sturdier, yeah.
Good point, Brian.
Zach, can you get something to take back where you think the first one should go to try that out? And then also maybe include where you think temporary post should go to move that radar sign. So since we have both pieces of equipment for the city, why don't we utilize both on that road for now?
Sure thing, yeah. Not a problem.
Unless the chief says Valley Drive's becoming a problem again with school starting, then we can put it back there.
Yeah, and when school starts, we'll do our traffic enforcement again, just so people are aware, hey, school's in session, it's 25 again. And we'll keep an eye on Valley Drive too to see if we're having any issues. I know last time it was mostly before and after school, so yeah, we can keep an eye and see if we're having issues again there. So.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Any more on that, Bill? If not, we'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian and second by everybody else. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, ayes have it. We are adjourned at 6:27.
I don't know who's got the thermostat turned down.